Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on how to download and prepare the files um, for our database course. These are the files associated with the Murach 3rd edition MySQL book. And we're going to be doing this on Windows 10. And just a note to people who found their way who are just plain old YouTubers and not part of my class. This is really specific to people who are in my class. Um, so the value to outsiders, I think, is not going to be high. Okay, so what are we doing? Well, there are files that come from the author of the text, and they're available at the website for the textbook. And then there are just a few files that are associated with a database that we're going to be using for our homework exercises. And they're only available to instructors. So what I've done is I've combined them and made them available on our weekly schedule. Okay, so let's take a peek at our weekly schedule. All right. Um, Here we go. So open up a browser, and the way that you get to the weekly schedule is follow the link that you've received for our weekly schedule and go to week one. Now, I have a kind of a general way to go to it, so that's what I'm doing now. And here's where I can choose week one, and I'm going to do it. Okay. And I'm using a virtual machine, so it's a little different than maybe what your experience will be, but I think it's close enough that it'll work just fine. Okay, so in the current semester, I have it down here, so the activity is load Murach 3E data, and I have a link for Murach 3E files. So you're going to want to left click on Murach 3E files, and that's going to cause it to download into your downloads folder. And so that's all that we need to do with the browser for now. So let's open up the file manager. Okay. And let's go to downloads. Okay. And here's what we got. It's called MySQL 3E data. Okay, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to unzip that and put is what results from the extraction from the zip file. We're going to want to put that over on the C drive. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to want to press Control and then right click on that directory entry. And isn't that interesting? That doesn't seem to work, but I know it works. So hold down Control, right click, and we're going to say we want to extract all. So that worked. Okay. Do I want to put it into downloads? No, I don't. I want to put it into um, the C drive. So mine went immediately to the C drive when again, if I cancel this, when I said I wanted to browse, mine went immediately to the C drive. Why? Because I think it's the last place I was when I was doing the practice for this. But that's maybe not the case for you. Maybe when you get over here, you see downloads. Okay. And now I'm going to go down to this PC and scroll a bit. And the C drive is here. Okay. And I just want to highlight local disk C. Okay. I don't want to double click on it to open it. And then I want to say select folder. And it says files will be extracted to this folder. and that's fine. We're going to confirm that by clicking on the button for extract. And my Windows virtual machine doesn't unzip that quickly, but it's not too bad. So we're watching the unzip. Okay. And now it takes us to local disk C, and you can see that we now have a directory called MySQL 3E data. Now, if in fact you had gone and gotten the files from the publisher and downloaded their zip file, it would just be called MySQL. So I've changed this, I've added some data, so I renamed the directory. Okay, so here we go. We're going to double click on that directory to open it. And you can see we have a lot of interesting things. The only directory that didn't come directly from the publisher in a way that a student would be able to download it from the publisher site is called MGSEX starts. I'm highlighting it here. And that has the files in there that we need to build the database that we're going to use for our homework exercises. And that's made available to instructors and not to students. Have had to bring this. I've had to bring it in explicitly. But all the rest of the stuff is the standard stuff. The directory for book scripts, let's go there. This has the scripts that are used as examples in each of the chapters of the book. And for instance, in chapter 3, which is the first of the groups of exercises that we're going to do, here are all the examples that are from the text. So if we take 3-08, oh, I see. We're going to have to tell it what to open it with. So let's just say we want to edit it. So we want to edit it, and here is an SQL script. Looks pretty good. Okay. All right, that's great. So those are there if you're reading through the text and you want to be able to gee, I'd like to run that. You know, they say it works like this, but let's actually go run it. You can do that. Now, what databases do they use? Well, they use the databases that we're going to install soon. They use APEX and OM. Okay, and we'll have them installed soon. Okay, can't quite run those yet. Okay. Here we go. I don't know how we got to Workbench, but I didn't want to be at Workbench quite yet. Oh, right. Sorry. I lost my window. And here's my window right here. Okay, so we're back. So let me close Workbench. And, okay, so we have our directory. It's on this PC. It's on the C drive. It's MySQL 3E data. All right, there we are. So you know what the book scripts are. The next thing is DB setup. Okay, these are files that we use to set up the databases that are used in the text. So they're used in the examples. They're also used at the back of chapter exercises. Okay, now we don't use the back of chapter exercises for our homework assignments because, as you'll see in a minute, the author has provided the solutions to those. Well, that turns out to be a really good way to get some practice on some exercises and to be able to look up the answers. So that's how the author intended it, and that's how we use them in our course. Okay, so that's what's in DB setup. We're going to run those in just a minute. Okay, diagrams. Let's look at this. It turns out that one of the features of MySQL Workbench is that you can use a diagrammer to do a number of things, including designing a relational database and even forward engineering it into a SQL script that you can use to build the database. Okay, and here are some examples here. We won't be using that till I think chapter 10. Okay. EX solutions. These are the solutions to the end of chapter exercises. So the end of chapter exercises that have solutions that are scripts, they really start with chapter 3. Okay, and as you can see here, we've got 308, 309, 310, 311, 312, 314. Okay. Okay, so you can look at those as a way to confirm that you know how to do the exercises before. For instance, you might do the ones that we're going to be doing as a homework assignment, and we don't have the solutions for those. I typically publish the solutions for those right before the class in which we discuss the solutions. Okay. We have two directories, one Java and one PHP. These have examples in them. Let's open Java. These have examples in them of, in this case, Java programs that use MySQL relational databases. And as I recall, there's an example at the end of chapter 1 that's pretty close to what we see here. We're going to cover it when we cover chapter 1, but that's not something that we're going to do as an exercise. And down here, PHP, it's the same thing. This is PHP code that corresponds to the PHP code that is in the chapter at the end of chapter 1. There's one other directory, MGSEX starts. So it turns out that MGS stands for My Guitar Shop. And this is the database that we're going to be using on our homework exercises. So we've yet to build that database. Okay. In fact, we've got the scripts up here in DB setup to build the ones that normally come with the text, and now we've got the scripts here in MGSEX starts to build the My Guitar Shop database that we're going to need to do the homework exercises. And if we look down here, we can see one of the scripts. The ones that we're going to be doing is create My Guitar Shop. Okay, so that's where all the data is now. How do we use this to load up the data that we're going to be using? Well, it's not too hard. Let's open Workbench. I'm going to come down here, and I've left an icon down here in the taskbar to start Workbench. And as you can see, I have an instance here of MySQL, and Workbench. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up what we have here. And one of the things you can see is that currently it looks like I have all these databases already loaded. Well, that's not what you're going to see. What you're going to see is uh, APEXOM and my guitar shop are not going to be there. So I'm just going to drop those. So how do you do that? Well, you highlight the database. I highlight AP and I say I want to drop schema. And I drop that. And I'm going to do the same thing to EX. Now, you're not going to have to do that if you already have them, uh, uh, if they're not there when you get there. And I suspect that's what you're going to see. I thought I had already deleted these, but I hadn't. And the last one is OM. And drop that. Okay. Whenever you're not absolutely sure that you have the current list of schemas, and the word schema and database are used pretty interchangeably in MySQL. Whenever you want to refresh that list, up here, right across from this bold word schemas is a refresh icon. So refresh that list. Okay, so we've got two scripts that we have to run. The first one is going to load the companion the scripts that load the companion databases APEX and OM. So let's do that. So we're going to go up to this row of icons up here, and the second one is to open an SQL script. So let's click on that, and it's going to ask us where our script is, and we're going to go to this PC, and then we're going to go to the C drive, and then down into MySQL 3E data, and we're going to go to DB setup. And now we want to highlight create databases and click on the open button. Okay, and there is our script. It's pretty long. Okay, and whereas it probably looks kind of hyper technical and not easy to understand now, by the time we get finished with this course, particularly when we get to chapters 10 and 11, we're going to learn how to do this. So we're going to learn how to build a script like this that creates a database. And the other thing that we do here is that we load some test data. Where's the test data? Here are the inserts of the test data. Okay. All right, good. So we have a script. All right. We want to make sure that we're not highlighting part of the script. This is what highlighting it would look like. Okay. So we want to make sure that we click. You can click in like the upper left. You just see the bar there. Okay. Or you can click really any single place in the script. And now we want to go up and we want to look at the toolbar right above the editor panel. And it is going to show us two lightning bolt icons. And each of them will run a script, okay? They will run in some way the script that's in the current editor instance in Workbench. And in our case, I'm going to teach you how to use the lightning bolt on the left, which is the plain lightning bolt. And what it does is it runs either the entire script if you haven't highlighted anything, or if you highlight either if you highlight anything at all, a single word, one line, 3 lines, it will run what's highlighted. the way we typically use it, we just click, so we're not highlighting anything. And then we click on the left of the lightning bolts, and that runs. Now, when it runs, it's going to show us the console output down here in this lower panel. I like to typically, before I run something important where I might want to look at the output to make sure it ran well, I like to come down here on top of this console output, click and choose clear. Okay, so now I'm going to know that all the output I have down there came from the script that I just ran. Okay, so let's go back up. We have our cursor in the right spot. Let's put a lightning bolt on the left, and here it goes. And you can see all this has run down here. What we're looking for down in the console output is if a particular command in the script ran successfully, we're going to see a green check mark all the way on the left. If there was a warning that you may want to be concerned about, it'll have a yellow triangle. Generally speaking, when you run these database loading scripts, we expect a yellow triangle or two, so that's fine. The thing that we don't want to get is we don't want to get a red ball with an X in it. And as you can see, we have no red balls with X's in them. So that seems to have run just as we want. Okay, so what we should see is we should see the three databases, AP, EX, and OM, loaded. And yet we come over to this navigation panel and we don't see them. That's because you have to go up to right across from where it says Schemas, you have to click on the refresh button. So now we've clicked on the refresh button, and we're going to see if we click on the little triangle to the left of OM, we can see we've got OM and EX. We've got EX and then AP. Okay, and we can see with AP that it has a list of the tables. So let's take a look at the tables. These are the tables in the AP database. AP stands for accounts payable. The AP database is the primary database that's used in the examples that are in the text. And let's look at the contents of the vendors tables. So we come down here to vendors, we hover over it. Then off to the right, we get three icons. And the one we're going to learn about right now is the one on the right. That's going to give us a list of all the data that's in the table. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to get this thing down here is called a result grid. It shows us the result set. And the result set here is all the data in the vendors table. So let's see how many rows there are. Well, I forget, I think there's about 120 vendors. And the vendor IDs go up to 123. So maybe there's either 123, maybe there's 122. Okay, so every time we run a query, we get and it succeeds. We get a kind of sub panel down here in the bottom of the editor, which shows us in grid form the result set that came back. Okay, now how did we get that? Well, on one hand, it was kind of magic because we went over to the Navigator and we clicked on an icon On the other hand, what did the icon do? It just created a little bit of SQL. And so what does this say? Select all columns from uh, the vendors table that's a part of the AP schema or database. And that's what we wanted. And one of the really nice things I like about this tool is that it's got magic in the sense that it has a graphical user interface where you can click on icons. But in a lot of cases, it shows you how it implemented your request. And in this case, it said, oh, they just want to see uh, all the rows and all the columns from vendors. And it ran that, and we can do that. So we could do the same thing. Okay. So for instance, if we wanted to do this for terms, we could go and hover over terms and then click on the icon. Or we're going to find out that we can come up to this toolbar and say that we want a new uh, script uh, editor panel. And then we could say something like this, select asterisk all the columns from AP. Usually we're not going to do have an AP prefix like this, but that's not until we get to chapter 3. So we'll tell you the way that I prefer you do it when we get to chapter 3. So the database is AP, and we want terms. Okay, and we can put a semicolon at the end. That's a way to it's a way to separate one SQL statement from the adjacent one if you have a script with more than one statement. So let's run that. Okay, it's not highlighted, but okay, we're going to click on that. And there's the terms. Okay, so one of the really interesting things, one of the things I really like about Workbench is a lot of the stuff that it does for us, it does by giving us a graphical way to tell the tool what we want, but then it turns that into the SQL that would do the same thing, which is really pretty neat because, well, it's a good way to learn SQL. Okay, so you can see that we have the AP database. Okay, do we really have the OM and the EX? Whereas when we look at the list of tables under AP, we actually see the tables. When we look at EX, we're not really seeing that. And sometimes what you can do, oh, this is sort of interesting. If you look to the left of EX, we have a refresh icon over a database. So let's click on that. Or maybe that means that we need to go up and refresh up here. So let's see. I never have a lot of luck with this. Okay. So this phenomenon that we get where we show that all these things are being fetched. These are not very big. These databases are relatively small, so they should have already loaded. One of the good things about MySQL Workbench is it's free software. One of the bad things is that it's free software, and it can be kind of buggy. Okay, so how do we get past this phenomenon if we have tables fetching? Well, you typically can go up and close Workbench. So we're just going to go to the upper right and click on the X. And then the next time you load it, let's load it again. And let's open up the instance here. Okay. And let's go to, for instance, we had AP, we didn't have OM. Let's look at OM. Now the tables are loaded. Okay, so if we want to look at maybe something like orders, hover over that, go out to the right, click on the table icon at the end to see the contents. There it is. It worked just fine. Why does it do that? I think it's an unrepaired bug. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for the standard databases. In the chapters that we cover, we do a lot with AP. We do a little bit with EX, and we don't do anything with OM. Not that I'm thinking of right now. Okay, so what we don't have yet is My Guitar Shop. Okay, even if we refresh the list of schemas, it's not there. So how do we load that? Well, we load it with a script. Before we do that, how can we clean up Workbench? Well, we could go up to this bar that has all the tabs for the uh, uh, script editors that we have open, and we could right click on one of them and we could say close all. And it wants to know if we want to save the new one that we created. And no, we don't. So we're going to say don't save. So now we don't have an open editor window. Let's also come down here to the console output window and say we want to clear it. So we've cleaned up that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to open the script that loads up the My Guitar Shop database. Okay, so the second icon here is the one for opening a script. So click on that. And let's see, we're down in disk C. My SQL 3E data and DB setup, that's the last thing that we ran. These dialogues are kind of sticky. So let's click on just MySQL 3E data. And here we go up one level. And as I mentioned before, the script that we want is in MGS, which is short for My Guitar Shop, EX starts. So double click on that. And then the script we want is create My Guitar Shop. And one of the things I just want to point out is this is pretty much like other products that you've used. If you want to if you want to open, create My Guitar Shop, you can highlight it and go down and press the open button. Or you can double click on the line for My Guitar Shop. So this time I'm going to show you the other way. I'm just going to double click on it and it loaded up. So this is the script. It says this script creates the database named My Guitar Shop. That looks good. Let's make sure we're not highlighting any part of the script. I just want to go up here and give it a click. Then I can see the cursor. Okay, that's good. Then I'm going to take the left of the lightning bolts and click that. And then you can see we got the output down in the console area. And let's go through that. Again, over here on the very left side, ideally we'd like to get all green check marks, but there's some part of these database loading scripts will give you a warning in just a couple of cases. So let's look at those. We can take a couple of warnings and they look okay. So we've got a warning or two. That's it. No red balls with X's. That's what we didn't want. And now we should see the My Guitar Shop database in our list of schemas over in the Navigator. But again, we need to refresh. So let's go up across on the word schemas, click on the refresh icon. There's My Guitar Shop. Now, you can see that My Guitar Shop, the name of that schema or database, is in bold. Okay, and that indicates that that's the current um, database that we're working in. Okay, so one of the interesting things is it's a concept of this uh, Workbench product that it has a current database. So if we wanted to work with AP, we could go up and double click on AP, and you can see how it turns bold and it expands. And My Guitar Shop, which used to be bold, is not bold anymore. Okay. Now, for the current database, let's go to My Guitar Shop. Let's make that the current database. Uh, that means we could go to the tables here. And for instance, we've got one called customers. And we could open a new script. Open. Go up to the, no, we don't want to open a new script. Sorry. We want to create a new script. That's the first of these toolbar icons. So we get a blank script, okay? And so it already knows that we want to work in My Guitar Shop. So we could just say select all columns, that's the asterisk, from customers. And let's finish that off with a semicolon. And let's run that. We'll click on the lightning bolt on the left. And here it is. We've shown everything that's there. Okay. Now, what's the other way that you can do that? Well, you can come over to customers, hover over the customers table, and click on the rightmost of the icons that pop up, and you'll do the same thing. Okay. Now, we're not going to rely in our class very quickly when we get to chapter 3. We're going to learn how to tell the server which of the databases we want to use without using this kind of a baby feature of having a current database that you create through double clicking over here in the navigation panel. So feel free to use that for now, but when we get to chapter 3, we're going to have you stop using that function. Okay, so now we have all the databases that we're going to use for the chapters in the textbook. We've got AP, we've got OM, we've got EX, and then for our homework assignments, we've got My Guitar Shop. And that's all we need. And what I usually do is if I'm done for the day, right, I've got all my work done, I'll typically clean up before I leave. Why is that? Well, let's close the product without cleaning up. So let's go to the upper right and click on the X. And then let's open it up again. And the thing is that it's pretty sticky. So when we come down here and we say we want to open up the instance, we're going to get all of the tabs in the editor for the things that we had before. Okay, well, sometimes if you're in the middle of your work, there's a real benefit to that. You can say, oh, well, these were the things I was currently working on. But if, in fact, you've got your work done, and the next time you come in, you would like the editor panel to have been cleared. Then before you leave, go up to the tabs for the editors and right-click and say Close All. And again, we don't want to save the one we wrote ourselves. Okay? And now, if we close the product, and then we come back in, you're going to see that it's all cleaned up. So however you leave it is how you're going to come back to it. So act accordingly. Well, this is all we're going to need to get the database files loaded and the schemas or databases that we're going to need to use for the class, at least for this part of the class, uh, generated. And if you followed along, you have everything that we need to do to move on to the assignments that are going to be coming, which are fun. So I'm looking forward to them. I hope that you are too. So I'm going to say bye for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.